Steam pirate.
There's no steampunk here. What you talking about? All right, that thing's in my way. All right, but you look very piratey for real.
We are on our way to Tortuga.
Talking to this thing right here. Don't talk at me. Talk at them. Talk at them people. Talk at them.
We're going to Tortuga.
Okay. What's up? Finally, we got to it. Pirates of the Caribbean. The Curse of the Black Pearl. Remember this? We're going to get into history of pirates. We're going to get into the esoteric symbolism that many of you, I'm sure, missed and do not recall, do not remember. That is, in fact, there. Don't you think it's there now that we've gone back and watched some of it?
Yeah. There's a lot of beasties and ghoulies and goddesses.
Well, there's a lot of history to pirates, too, that people don't know. Yeah, exactly. There's curses, redemption, alchemy with the heart and his little heart box that tells the direction of what his desires are. And then there's a question of, can Jack develop a good heart from a bad heart? And the way that the pirates actually engage in magic. I didn't remember this with Calypso.
Well, they're all superstitious.
Right,
Extremely superstitious.
And I have some notes on why that is. I have done my pirate history research here.
I can't see.
Can't see what?
I can't.
Well, then take that stupid thing off.
No, I like it.
Take it off.
It's blingy. And it's got the Jolly Roger on it.
Gotta have some fan on. It's hot up in here with these costumes. Right now I'm wearing a J costume. It's still hot. Why don't you take it off if you don't like it?
Okay. I will. Just gonna give my eye a rest.
Corny, dude.
Ow.
So, do you want to do pirate history first, or do you want to get into the movie first?
Pirate history.
Okay, so a little bit of that. That's actually a good background to the story because a lot of people don't remember that the British East India Company plays a big role in the plot of the first three. And everybody, if you would, hit like and share. This is going to be fun. You're going to learn some stuff about how we got into the modern world where we are today. I'm not joking. Via the history of pirates. Via the history of Pirates of the Caribbean even. Did you know that Pirates of the Caribbean can help explain the modern world? And now that we live in a pirate city, I'm not joking. We live in a dang pirate. We stayed in an Airbnb that was the old House of the Flucies. It was the old Ladies of the Evening facility that is now an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. I felt in the evening I could hear the ghostly moans of the evening of the Ladies of the Evening. What do you think?
Ghosts of old pirate prosties.
I visits me prosties, or I does it by me onesies. Right?
Me mateys going to the prosties.
But he also says by his onesies,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All by me onesies. So, anyway, yeah, we live in the oldest city in America now, which actually has a whole pirate downtown. Because if you don't know, downtown St. Augustine is pirate city, and it looks like a pirate city. And there was conquistadors, and so there's Catholic, pirate, and Muslim influence because there was a period when it was the Spanish, Moroccan, Muslim era. So if you've never been to St. Augustine, it's not really like anything else in America. It's very much a pirate city. It's kind of like Balboa in San Diego.
It's even got a fort, a pirate fort. Not a pirate fort, a Spanish fort.
Right. And I think the British took it. They took it.
Yeah.
So it's been back and forth between pirates and British. Anyway, I mean Spanish and British. So we thought it would be fun since we came to Pirate City to do Pirates of the Caribbean.
I think that's probably the last greatest Disney movie.
Yeah, we were saying this, that basically the Disney movies now are just total woke. This one still was fun. The trilogy was enjoyable going back. It was like what movies try to be but aren't anymore because the woke has pretty much shut all the fun down.
Yeah.
Really?
They sucked all the fun out of movies.
By the way, if you guys would hit like and share. So a little bit of history of pirates. For the movie, the relevance is not even so much the pirates themselves, but you have to look at the history of the British East India Company. And that's relevant because that's going to get into the history of Skull and Bones, because the British East India Company and the opium empire that's built, if you read a book like Dope Inc. or Anthony Sutton's Secret American Establishment, right? Skull and Bones comes out of that older Eastern Seaboard establishment, which had aligned themselves with the British Imperial Royal Society elite that Quigley and other books write about or talk about. That we've lectured through those entire texts. But that's that drug empire, basically. So the way that the British East India Company made most of its money, this is public history, not conspiracy theory, was opium. So it was like the legal opium trade, right? So this is late 1600s. This is the first corporate governance, unless you want to argue that the Vatican is an international corporate governance. You could make that argument. But in the modern era, why don't you just take that stupid thing off? You're going to get hurt.
I know.
This cheap Party City stuff, we're going to have a lawsuit on our hands. So only 3 countries had empires prior to the 1600s. Only Spain and Portugal, that's 2. And then the British Empire stepped up and they said, we got to figure out how to man these seas and figure out what to do. But it was very expensive to do this. And so some enterprising private merchants got the idea. They said, why don't we just fund these expeditions and then we get a charter from the Queen and we'll go out and do it for you. So this made them fabulously wealthy. The British East India Company became the most powerful company in the history of the world. And they got basically Eurasia on lockdown through controlling the sea lanes, the trading lanes. Mm-hmm. So they engaged in all kinds of activities, including the slave trade, including tea, spices, a little bit of that paprika, a little bit of that pepper, a little bit of that tea. Got it all.
And that's what makes Pirates of the Caribbean interesting, because by the end of the third one, you're kind of questioning who is the real pirates. Is it the businessmen or the pirates? Because they have taken on some kind of role of like freedom fighters, right?
Yeah, they're sort of the pirates are kind of like actually the libertarian anti-establishment people at the time, which is what the original mafiosi were in Naples and Sicily, interestingly. But I saw a lot of parallels there when I was reading between these two things. So corporate governance, basically the first attempt at this was called the Muscovy Company prior to the British East India Company. And they went to Moscow, but this wasn't that profitable. More profitable was East India. And this is not just India, the nation, but they also locked down Malaysia, China, Japan, and India. So it was like basically all of Asia. So all the trade was taxed. It was run by this company. And eventually, this is the funniest part, there's a rebellion. You get revolts from India. The people in India, I got pirate hairs in my pirate in my mouth. They're the private. So basically, you've got the British East India Fleet. Then there's other people who are private guys who get a license from the government, and they're called privateers. So they can have their own boat and they can do this kind of stuff, but the king gets a cut. So Captain Kidd, famous pirate, he's one of the first of these. He began as a state-sanctioned pirate, basically. And so he had a license to attack anybody that would attack the British Empire, but he got really haughty and he wouldn't salute the other British imperial, captains. And then they started firing at him, and this got him in trouble. And the king was like, screw this, you're more trouble than you're worth. So then he becomes a pirate. So the reality, interestingly, is that in the movie Pirates of the Caribbean, the trilogy, you see all of these shifting allegiances, and like one guy beats another guy and then says, you're all part of my crew now. This is actually what happened in the history of the pirate, because everybody's just changing their allegiances constantly.
Yeah.
And it shows kind of the absurdity of the notion of, what am I trying to say? Like, there's not, it's kind of lawless, right? The way that people think about the conquering of America's Wild West, it's like how the seas were, right? And England is the preeminent, sea-based nation. It's contrary to a fixed land-based nation, and a lot of geopolitical analysts have talked about the difference between land-based empires and sea-based empires. And the thing with sea-based empires is that they're focused on monetarism and trade, whereas land-based empires like Russia or China, their focus is the land and the people. And so there's a different emphasis, and thus the British Empire would most likely give rise to a usury monetarist-based empire, a Venetian style control of trade and monetization.
Well, that reminds me of the whole Jordan Maxwell laws of the sea, maritime admiralty laws.
Maritime admiralty laws.
So a lot of our laws that we have now come from the seafaring times, right?
Right. Well, it's British law.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, if there's a yellow fringe around the American flag, it means you're under the sea law. And then he has all those word associations that he does with, like, the birthing and your birth certificate, like a ship births and the waters and all of that. That's like classic conspiracy stuff. Right?
Well, it did remind me a little bit of Jordan Maxwell, because the whole idea of the Jolly Roger, right? The flag that the pirates use is the skull and crossbones, and the skull and crossbones does have a Masonic history. I don't know if pirates have a directly Masonic history. I'll let you have. You had something you wanted to read, but
do you want to hear that right now?
Hold on. Okay. So, but real quick, I'll let you read that.
Okay.
That ties into what we're talking about with the history of Skull and Bones, because the Royal Society, the Milner, Fabian circles, they made their money through. So the British East India Company becomes the model for the British South Africa Company that Cecil Rhodes sets up. So it's the continuation of that British imperial model that transitions into the Anglo-American establishment of Quigley. And that's the old boys of the Eastern Seaboard elite. That's Yale, Skull and Bones. Those people are aligned with the Rothschilds, the Royal Society, the Cliveden set in the UK. That is the real power structure in the 20th century. And I think there is a connection with the symbolism of the Skull and Bones, because even though they're the establishment, they're the people who think that they're above and outside of the law. They're the sovereign wildmen individuals, the Jolly Rogers, the pirates, who are not subject to the laws like everybody else is. And so they can loot and plunder. And I think that really is part of the symbolism of why Skull and Bones Society out of Yale utilizes the old pirate symbolism. But you said there's also a Masonic connection.
It says, according to Masonic legend, the skull and crossbones are the bones of Jacques de Molay. Mm-hmm. The 23rd and last Grand Master of the Knights Templar was burned alive by the church. When 3 Templars came looking for his bones, they found only his skull and femurs. By this time, the Templars had become accomplished mariners, and the skull and femurs of the last Grand Master became their nautical symbol, the Jolly Roger. And then they talk about this thing called the legend of the Skull of Sidon, and is connected to the Jolly Roger's relationship with the Knights Templar. Said the Lord of Sidon, who was a Templar, lost his love when she was young. On the night of her burial, the Templars snuck to her grave and dug up her body. At the same time, he heard a voice instructing him to return after 9 months to find a son. That's some creepy pirate lore right there, isn't it? 9 months later, the Templar dug up her grave to find a head resting on the skeleton's femurs. The same voice told him to guard the head because it would bless all of his endeavors and defeat any enemies before it. The symbol of the sun, or the skull and crossbones, became the protecting genius for the Templars.
Interesting. So this is Skull and Crossbones in the history of de Molay and Templars.
Yeah.
And then, but there was you had a different article about the way that the pirates would utilize this was they would have different flags for different symbols of what they would do. So one pirate would utilize the skull and crossbones with a red background, and that meant that there was no quarter. But if he had a skull and crossbones with a black background, that meant that if you fought them, they would give you quarter. But sometimes they would raise up the black one, and then you would fight, and then they would immediately raise up the red one.
Yeah.
So they engaged in a lot of trickery. But there was a kind of what you get in the history of this is there is a kind of loose pirate code. I don't know if it was ever written down like the movie makes a joke about, but there is a loose pirate code in the sense of like all of these different symbols and signals that they would send to one another. And like Captain Kidd, for example, his crew mooned a bunch of, like they bent over and showed their butts to a bunch of the British army, and that's partly what got him in trouble. So you actually see them doing that in Pirates of the Caribbean. So I think that Captain Kidd is probably a basis for some of the people like Barbossa. I'm sure Barbossa and others are kind of a mixture of like Blackbeard and all these different characters. But one of the key characters from the history of the British East India Company is the most famous, the governor of Bengal, Robert Clive. He was the one that was running it when it was the most successful. He seems to be very close to Lord Cutler in the films. They're very similar. I would imagine Cutler's based on Clive to a degree. But so anyway, the British East India Company sets up slave factories. So this is actually corporate slave labor. It gets its beginnings here. It's actually prior to Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes really perfected it, though, with labor camps with his diamond mines. But this is the model for today's corporate global governance. That's another reason why it's relevant to Skull and Bones, is that these are the corporate governors of the world today. But they're more like the British East India Company than they are like the pirates. Was there something else you wanted to say?
I thought Tortuga is Haiti. Yeah, so we were going to talk about Haiti too.
Well, Haiti is cursed in the sense that like they still do voodoo rituals. You were just talking about.
I just learned that when they were fighting their colonization in the 1700s, they all got together and did a voodoo ritual and sold the island of Haiti to voodoo gods to help them fight, and they got their independence. And then they do this every year, like it's one of their national holidays, is the renewal.
They renew the covenant with the
demon,
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Papa Doc Duvalier, he's the father of Baby Doc. Baby Doc's no longer the president, but Papa Doc was the president of Haiti, and they're officially a voodoo practicing family. And you can find the pictures of Nelson Rockefeller, because he was running the CIA's like Latin South America bureau. So you can find the pictures of him down there with Papa Doc, just chilling, just doing that old voodoo, just chilling. So
that's why Haiti's never going to get better if they keep on renewing their spell with dark. Well,
and they're nominally Catholic, which is funny because Catholicism in Haiti just means basically Santeria, right?
Yeah.
I mean, more or less. Well, there's Candomblé and Santeria, and there's a bunch of different ones. You read a book on that.
Yeah.
What's all the different ones? Do you know?
From Dahomey and Benin, and that's all like old voodoo and juju.
Juju Magumbo?
Yeah.
Bad Juju Magumbo.
And then there's Santeria and Candomblé and voodoo in America.
Is it all going on in the Caribbean area?
Well, that's what the slave trade brought to the Caribbean was, so they would get the slaves from.
So it's all going on there.
Yeah.
I understand. Right. It's not indigenous. The indigenous religion would have been just some form of animism.
Yeah.
But then when these empires start importing and moving the humans in the human slave trade, then you get the importation of these other religious traditions out of Africa. But British East India Company was big in that, and they eventually got a monopoly on all trade. And so this is how they got to be so powerful. This benefited the British Empire. However, after the revolts of various Indian colonists in 1858, this began the decline of the British East India Company. They also fought a bunch of wars with the Dutch East India Company, their main competition in the 1700s. That's all relevant because Pirates of the Caribbean takes place in 1720, so it's like right when British East India Company is like at their zenith. But British East India Company completely falls in 1860. 73, it's liquidated, and guess who takes over all of its dominions and properties?
Who?
The Crown, the British Crown. So they basically just seized it and said, "Okay, it's all ours. We'll take it all."
Yeah.
But I guess that's how it works, right? So anyway, so you've got a mix.
It's like, who's the bigger pirate?
Yes. It's competing pirates is what's going on here, right?
And you always can count on them to look out for themselves, right?
Yes. And pirates are...
At least they're predictable and they're always going to...
Yeah, and this all comes up in the movies in a brilliant way because, again, remember the East India Company's most profitable trade is opium. This then is the basis for how many of today's wealthiest families, the elite, they made a lot of their money, their fortunes on the drug trade, especially in the 1800s. And those are the same families that set up Skull and Bones, which is one of the lodges of the Bavarian Illuminati. It's Lodge 322 out of Germany. And so, what?
That Committee of 300 book talked a lot about this time period and the opium and how it's always been drugs.
Right.
And drug running, even up to now. With,
right.
You know.
And that's what I was going to say. So it goes from the pirates and the British Empire smuggling and running the drugs. Well, the East India Company didn't have to smuggle it because they could do it. They were legal drug traffickers. The pirates were the ones doing the same stuff illegally because they didn't have the charter to do it from the Queen or the King, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how they become basically organized crime. They're kind of like the mafia. So hence the pirate code is much like the mafia code, right? That we read about. This is a great book I've been reading now. Shout out to whoever recommended that. A lot of chapters on Sammy the Bull in there. And I've also got Sammy's book, The Underboss. The Underboss. Underboss. Come on. You know my Sammy?
Yeah. Have you even done Barbossa yet? What the heck? Do it.
What does he say? You best be
believing.
You must be believing in ghost stories, Miss Swan. You're in one.
Yeah. Parlay.
Parlay.
Yes.
Parlay. Parlay, Bobby. Hello, Bobby.
My least favorite character is the eye-popping guy, I think.
Yes, he's very greasy and grimy. And he's supposed to be gross. But I mean, pirates are...
They're all gross. Right? They did such a good job making everybody disgusting.
I'd be the one pirate that brushed my teeth. No pirate brushes... I'll be the one pirate that brushes my teeth. They call me Captain Teeth.
So this is the world that Pirates of the Caribbean is set in.
Yes.
Right?
And keep in mind, a lot of superstition. Why all the superstition? Well, it's not just because it's, 500 years ago, whatever, 300 years ago. It's because I never made this connection, and that more and more I thought about it made sense. So, all ship maneuvering, shipping, you have to do it on the basis of the stars. And if you're doing your shipping on the navigating by the stars, then you're going to probably be superstitious and into astrology.
Oh, good point.
Then you're probably going to think that all of your life is guided by the stars. You're going to be very into fate, superstition, right? And so the religion that undergirds Pirates of the Caribbean is, I don't think there's anything really, there's no Christian elements to it. It's basically a primal blood redemption, human sacrifice religion that would seem like the indigenous kind of religion of either the islands or the Africans that come. Because there's a couple places where, for example, Johnny Depp is looking for somebody and he asks, and one guy says, they sell the long pork there. Right? So he's talking about an island where they sell long pork, which is eating humans.
Yeah. Well, so, he ends up in a cannibal tribe.
And then he ends up in a cannibal tribe because he made a joke that he was a... they viewed him as the god of their tribe.
Yeah.
Right, so... what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, so let's go back to the very beginning real fast. They're in Port Royal, Jamaica, where the governor there is...
Jonathan
Keira
Price.
Knightley's dad.
Right, Jonathan Price, Keira Knightley's dad. It's the colony that the British have set up at Port Royal, which will be eventually Jamaica.
And she's supposed to be a lady, but we all know she's not going to end up a lady.
Right, and she's got this doubloon that she got when she was a kid from Will Turner, who is the son of a pirate.
Oh, and the pirates, they're pretty superstitious too because, like, they have to watch out for storms, which you can't really predict. And so, like, they're always looking for omens and weird winds, right? Signs that they can foretell future events.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of bound up again with that lifestyle. I think that you're going to naturally be tempted with superstition. So it's just interesting that the trilogy doesn't have, I mean, not that I expected Disney trilogy to have Christian elements, but you have these weird elements of blood redemption, blood sacrifice, and curses, which, I mean, that exists in pagan religions, but also it is kind of parallel loosely to the Christian idea of being under the curse and then a blood sacrifice relating to how we're redeemed or set free from the curse. Mm-hmm. Because all the people in Barbossa's crew, right, have been tricked and they're under this curse and they have to basically collect all the gold conquistador medallions back. And that's relevant to here because conquistadors founded this city. But they were going to, by the way, they were going to go by the fourth one. You can tell at the end of the third one, they're hinting that the fourth one will be Johnny Depp looking for the Fountain of Youth, which is in the map. It's Florida. And if you go to St. Augustine, they hyped the Fountain of Youth in St. Augustine.
We drank from that.
We drank from it, right? But of course, the Orthodox view, the Fountain of Immortality is in the liturgy, said to be the liturgy. But it's just ironic that it's also said to be St. Augustine, right? But they never made that one. I don't know why, but they're hinting at World's End that Johnny Depp's sailing away and he's stolen the section of the map for Florida. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to get to Florida. But anyway, as we said, they're the original organized crime. They are the libertarians. It's cursed Aztec gold. What else?
The thing I like about Johnny Depp's story arc is that you can never tell if he is becoming more virtuous or just more cunning to manipulate circumstances to his own benefit. What do you think?
Yeah, that's part of his character development is that he goes from being totally scallywag to having a heart or having a conscience. And Elizabeth Swann keeps saying, I know you're a good guy. I know you're a good guy deep down. I wanted to mention, that there's a lot of symbolism that is in the film. It's kind of not on the surface. It's a little more subtle when you know about this time and the religion that was very prevalent in this region. One thing, they used to call Port Royal the Sodom of the 17th century.
Really?
Yeah, so it was known, and I'm assuming that would include Tortuga and Haiti. Like, it was known as being this really just raucous, horrible area. But it's weird because the Black Pearl, if you recall, it emerges out of the abyss. So it's actually something that comes up out of Hades. And they even describe themselves as condemned to hell, right? Mm-hmm. But in symbology, pretty unanimously, it's there in the Bible, but the abyss, right, of the ocean is similar to the spiritual abyss of where the demonic and the satanic and, Luciferian beings arise. They arise out of the abyss.
And it's the portal to the land of the dead.
Yes.
Right.
Well, they sail to World's End, and then they go through the portal, which is in underwater. They have to tip the boat over.
Yeah.
Right. So it becomes the inverse. It becomes the other side, like in Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. What do they call it?
The upside down.
Yeah, it becomes they literally go upside down, and it becomes the upside down.
And they did that in the Peter Pan movie too, in the new Peter Pan.
Oh, really?
Movie.
I didn't know that. So we got a gold medallion of Aztec gold. That's relevant because Aztecs did human sacrifice, and so the irony is that the curse of the Aztec gold is going to be reversed by an Aztec level human sacrifice. You have to sacrifice a virgin, and so Elizabeth Swann is going to be that virgin because she's the daughter of nobility, right? And that's like the sacrifice of the royalty, sacrifice of the queen. It's the king kill ritual, but here applied to the princess.
But then they find out it has to be blood of a pirate, so that's what makes it Will's blood instead.
Right. They think that it's the virgin sacrifice, but it doesn't work because It has to be Will Turner, who is, as you said, a pirate. The pure blood. So bloodlines suddenly come into this, and whether a person has royal bloodlines on the side of the nobility, like we think that Elizabeth's going to be a lady. She's in the lineage of Jonathan Price, the noble, versus the bloodlines of those who have pure pirate bloodline, right? Like Johnny Depp's, I guess it's his dad, is Keith Richards, right? Mm-hmm. So he's a pure blood pirate.
Yeah.
Right?
And his mom's a shrunken head.
Yeah.
Why are you taking my hook away?
Because you keep fidgeting with it.
I need it.
It's distracting. No, you don't. Just think about
my
this.
fidget hook.
No. There's fidget spinners, but for autistic pirates, there's fidget hooks. Right?
Yeah.
Spurred, me matey. The SS Spurred. You best be believing in autism. You got it. Right?
Yep.
You got it. So, where are we back? So we're back to curses and pirates, blood sacrifice owed, blood money, the cursed gold of Cortez. That's it. It was Cortez's gold. The ship is like an ark too. That's interesting. That it's not explicit, but they talk about the ship like it's this community that you join, and if you join Barbossa's ship, you're cursed. So you're amongst the dead. You're part of the team of hell. And it reminds me of the Orthodox icon of the ship, which we have, which everybody's seen that, right? Of the church as the ship. It's Noah's Ark, right? So there's the ship of Christ, which is the ark, which is the church, which is Noah's Ark. There's also the ship of the dead, which is Davy those Jones. That are cursed, right? Davy Jones is the Flying Dutchman, or Barbossa's cursed black pearl. And it's interesting because in Scripture, Jesus is the pearl of great price. And so his ship would be the pearl. Mm. And Barbossa's hell ship is the black pearl. Mm-hmm. The black pearl!
And then you were talking about how he offers her the apples, so that's got some Genesis in it.
Yeah, well, again, that hell imagery comes to the fore because, and then here, let's see, we can go to this. You'll notice that's at the beginning when she, something happens, I don't remember the backstory, but young Will Turner ends up on a ship that she's on, and she grabs this gold doubloon, right, which is the Cortez gold. So now the treasure is short one piece of gold. And that's why the curse can never be lifted until they get that back. But they don't know who has it until they finally find her living at Port Royal, right? If nobody remembers. So hopefully y'all remember. But do y'all remember the icon I'm talking about? I just want to show you, right? Orthodox icon.
Is that the one someone gave us?
Yeah. What do you mean? It's, of course.
Okay.
I mean, I guess there are other ones of the church as the ship, right? But that one. This big one right here, right? The one above my head. I don't know if I can make that. I'm just trying to make it the full screen, but this is harder than I thought. Good grief. Yeah. So you'll notice that, right, Christ is the helmsman of the ship, not the Pope. I think Roman Catholics have pictures where the Pope's steering the ship, which is funny, right? All these rival ships. It's like a big, you could have like Satan's ship, you could have the Orthodox ship with Jesus, and then you could have the Roman Catholic ship with the Pope. Mm-hmm. You're not listening. You don't hear what I said?
Yeah.
I've seen Roman Catholic paintings like that, where now I'm getting Funko Pops on the ship. No, we don't want Funko Pop ship. Catholic Pope. The bark of Peter, that's it. There we go. There's one. So notice that it's above my head there. I don't know why I can't get them on the main page, but you could have the Orthodox ship where, right, it's Jesus, or you can get it in the Pope's ship with all them weirdos. Look at all them weirdos and a bunch of soy weirdos on the Pope's ship. Or you could get on the Orthodox ship, which is the one where Jesus is actually the one that's steering it.
Where is that?
Where's what?
Click on that again.
Where's what?
That Bark of St. Peter.
The Catholic one?
This one.
That's the Bark of Peter is the Catholic one. That's another Catholic painting. But I'm trying to find a good image of the Orthodox icon. Like I had up. Here's another Orthodox icon of it where it's Jesus in the ship, right? But this one is cool because of all the symbolism involved in this one. Like this one actually has the Pope on there. Down here as you have Antichrist. Then you have the Pope over here trying to pull the ship down. The ecumenists, heretics, Luther, Muslims are on here. Shooting out of the mouth of hell. There's the Saracens shooting out of the mouth. Who's eating him? That's the mouth of hell.
Oh.
It's a Muslim shooting at the ship of the church from the mouth of hell.
Okay.
See?
Yeah.
And then Jesus is pirating the ship. Piloting, not pirating. You know what I mean. And then the Holy Spirit's in the sails as the wind. Right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, isn't that cool?
Yeah. I like that one.
And then you got this SS soy ship here with the Pope running it. That thing's gonna get so. I'd rather be on the Black Pearl than that one. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get back to our movie. Where are we at? So we got to have Will's blood to break the curse. They mention Hades. Don't they mention the ship like it's going to Hades? Mm-hmm. Barbossa offers her, that's right, he offers her the apple like he's Satan, right? Mm-hmm. Offering the apple in the garden. And we must offer the blood sacrifices that are owed to the heathen gods. That's actually the line that Barbossa says. So the blood sacrifice is offered to the demons or to the gods in this sort of pagan worldview. So it's interesting because the pirates give obeisance to the pagan worldview, mm-hmm. which I didn't remember until we watched it this time around.
They worship Calypso, which is the sea.
Yes, well, the sea is chaos, and she's always churning, and she's raw force of nature, right? And they have to placate her with the pieces of 9, right?
9 pieces of 8.
The 8 pieces of 9.
No.
9 pieces of 8?
Yeah.
Whatever. They have to placate her with the offering, right? Because she's their goddess.
They bound her with that spell and into human form. And so this is kind of an allegory of like mastering the seas, like humans and men.
Right, controlling the raw powers of nature.
Yeah.
Right. But in the Bible, the life is in the blood. So there is a sense in which it's not the pagan notion of a curse where you pay off the gods and you can control the gods, right? In this worldview, it is because they're controlling Calypso by the third one. They release her as a magic ritual, to fight against the British Empire
and Davy Jones,
yeah, which is death. So basically,
Im
Broken, Jack Sparrow, Broke.
He walks around the house talking like Calypso all the time now.
What can I say? I'm a force of nature. What can I say? I talk like Barbossa too, though.
Yeah.
So what were you trying to say?
Barley.
Magical bloodlines. Will has magic blood. The blood is in the life. There's an energy that's released in the ritual sacrifice, and so all of that was present in Pirates 1. I didn't remember any of that. Did y'all remember that in Pirates of the Caribbean?
I actually like Lord Beckett, or what's his name?
The Commandant.
Yeah.
No.
No, not Beckett. The other
one. Not Beckett.
What's his name?
I don't know, but I know who you're talking about. He ends up being a pirate. By the way, you can support the show via the Streamlabs right there. Black Pearl is the first one. The second one is
Norrington.
Yeah, Commandant Norrington.
I like him.
Yeah. The second one is Dead Man's Chest. And then the third one is At World's End. So there's a lot of interesting plays on the chest. And let's see, what do we got over there? Lord Beckett. What does it say?
He's the East India Company that comes and takes over the governor in Port Royal.
Right. So now the East India Company takes over, which was formerly a crown thing. East India Company takes over, which is accurate to history.
Yeah.
They took over all of the shipping and all these lanes.
And now they're all being employees, right? Jack.
The Lord Cutler, who's the new villain, he explains that welcome to a brave new world. Or he says this is the new world. The new world is not just America as the colonies. The new world is the British Empire, and I think this translates to today because our present world government is basically the former British Empire evolved into today's World Economic Forum technocratic global empire.
And this is the one where they have to save Jack from the cannibal island, right? He's their chief, but they're going to eat him.
Yes, he is the chief of the cannibal tribe, but this is where they talk about the long pork. But this introduces the notion of the compass, but it's a compass not to show you the direction of the sea. It's a compass that shows you the direction of what your heart wants. Mm-hmm. And so we consistently see this, recurring heart box thing, that the technology, this magical technology that shows you what you desire. It's a weird plot device in the story because it doesn't really have a lot of significance except that it eventually takes you to the chest that has Davy Jones's heart. And then it gets into this Gnostic text where Davy Jones, who is this kind of demigod or Yaldabaoth archon figure, he's fractured and lost his Sophia principal, who's Calypso. Because there's a love affair between Davy Jones and Calypso, and he thinks that she ran off and left him without his heart. She stole his heart, right? And so he's cursed. And he is this controlling devil god, evil creator god that runs the Davy Jones ship, right? And he makes you basically work for him as a slave, as your afterlife punishment.
Well, and you forget who you are and become part of the ship, part of the sea.
You lose your identity.
Get all crusty and barnacles.
You become like Bootstrap Bill.
Yes.
Bootstrap.
Bootstraps.
But the British East India Company is not really any different than Davy Jones's ship because they're both these sort of tyrannical things. And exactly what Lord Cutler says, he says, everybody will be our employee. Mm-hmm. They tell Jack and everybody, you will now be employees of the British East India Company. And that's exactly what Davy Jones says to everyone. So the idea here is that corporate world corporate governance of the British East India Company, British Empire, that's the same model of governance that the evil creator god in Gnosticism has for the world. But that's why Davy Jones is a Gnostic god, and he's fractured. He's lost an element of him, a key element, which is his heart, that Calypso stole. That's the Gnostic narrative of the Pistis Sophia, that she's alienated from the creator god.
But also, they are employing occult techniques. Like, he is after the businessman is after the compass, the magic compass, and the magic heart, so he can control the sea by a magical.
You're talking about Lord Cutler.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lord Cutler wants the compass because he thinks that will tell him how to. I forget what's.
Well, he wants Davy Jones's heart because then he controls the whole magical side of the sea.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So it's not just pure he does say that it's just good business,
right.
But occult and magic is part of his good business.
And the British Empire has a history of fascination and, deeply being ensconced in magic. I mean, I just got the book from recommendation from Scooter. I'll show you guys mean, this is the history of the British Empire's ethos, you could say, right? When we look at the character of John Dee, right? John Dee and the Empire of Angels, Enochian magic and the cult roots of the modern world, and this is going back to, Elizabeth and the time of the occult notions of the British Empire and spycraft. British spying comes out of this. And a lot of the British spies also were sea captains, and so they had to learn the sea lanes to be good spies. This one we go to what? Cannibal Island, and then we go to Isla de Muerta, the island of death. Or that's where the Aztec gold was. What's the history of Calypso as a goddess? Do you remember?
What do you mean?
Well, you know goddesses and all that stuff. Then you look up.
I guess she would be like part of Erzuli, the water, or Oshun would be her counterpart in voodoo.
Is there any reason why she turns to crabs?
I don't think so. So Calypso would be Roman or Greek or what? I don't know. Let me look it up.
Okay, you look that up, and then dead man's chest. Well, it's interesting because the heart comes out of the chest, and then they keep the heart in a chest. So there's a play on words between chests. But again, it's very primal and animistic because, for example, Crowley talks about obtaining a freshly beaten chest or heart out of someone's chest, and that would give you more access to the fresher it is, the more magical power is still in it, right? So that's actually underlies this, and he's just saying that because that's like a traditional animistic voodoo pagan approach to, chopping and getting hearts out of people, right? I mean, it's just traditional religion, right?
Okay.
That's just
Calypso is the goddess of the sea,
bathed in trad,
who fell in love with Odysseus and trapped him on her island for 7 years. She's depicted with a dolphin or a crab, daughter of Atlas. Calypso was a goddess of.
There we go.
Renowned beauty in the sea. So
to them.
She was Greek.
So she's a Greek goddess who is associated with crabs, exactly.
A nymph.
She in other words, that's an ancient mystical thought. A nymph is a demi-thought, not a demigod, a demi-thought, right? Right? A demi-thought? You're not even listening.
I'm looking at Calypso.
Okay. To the expense of my jokes.
Sorry.
It's okay. Do you want to be a thought or a demi-thought? So, by the way, you can support the show through the Streamlabs function. Super chats are via Streamlabs. We'll have a dono chat link coming up soon. And we are on the second one. Then the heart's in a chest. Hearts come out of chests. Play on words. The black spot, which is so there's a mark, which Johnny Depp has in this one, which is the black spot, which is the curse.
Oh, yeah.
So it's almost like the mark of Cain that you read about like in scripture. He's marked with a curse.
I think Davy Jones's tentacle face is one of the best CGI things I've ever seen. Like,
it definitely was for that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't imagine. Yeah, the effects are still pretty good. They hold up pretty well in this. I want to remind you guys too that there's a little something that I want to play. We're going to talk about real brief. We have another sponsor that you should be aware of, and that is Autonomy University. And our good buddy Richard is starting another season of Autonomy. And the way Autonomy works is that if you are interested in becoming self-sufficient, you want to become the pirate of your own vessel, you want to be the master of your own destiny, your own vessel, you want to be one of those libertarian pirates, then you want to take a course perhaps on how to go about that. And Richard does that by what he calls the University of Reason. And we'll take a look at a little bit of what he says here to see if you're interested in that. And what you do is you go over here and you have to fill out the obstacle course if you're interested. That way he can filter out people that are and aren't interested. So let's check out what Richard's saying, and then I'll comment on it.
And you've dipped into some personal development, but now you ask the question, now what? What can you do? Well, if you want to escape the apathy, step right this way. So twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week personal development and training course. What people get out of it is multifaceted. There's curriculum, there's exercises, there's camaraderie, you make new friends. There's a whole lot of interesting things. We're going to hear a sample from the course right now, and let's take a look at the value these students are getting. Charlotte departed this world, I think 2 years ago in March. So probably about 2 years ago. She lived a long, full life. She lived up in Maine, and her website used to be deliberatedumbingdown.com.
Richard's talking about Charlotte Iserbyt and her history of American education. She has an important role under the Reagan administration in calling out that they were intentionally dumbing people down. She was in charge of education at that time. And she knows about this because her dad was Skull and Bones, and so she had a history of, knowing what the vantage point of the elite was. Actually, Anthony Sutton's book covers quite a bit of Skull and Bones' connection to education and radically changing it to dumb people down. People like Horace Mann and John Dewey were actually, their strategies were implemented by the various Skull and Bones guys, and Charlotte Iserbyt knows a lot about that. So Richard did a lot of work, did a lot of interviews with Charlotte over the years. Obviously Alex had her on a lot too. So what he's talking about here is Charlotte Iserbyt's work, which is very well known, very famous. I guess she has passed away now, but so he's explaining that what Richard's course does is that it goes into reorienting you so that you're not coming out of that dumbed down public education mindset, and you're reorienting your entire education to becoming an individual that is self-sufficient, sovereign, so that you can run your own business. You don't have to be a slave of some other guy. You can become a business owner. I've listened to Richard for many, many years, and he's been a great help, a great influence on what I do. He inspired a lot of what I do over here, and you'll notice that when Richard teaches all of his history courses, he teaches a lot of the same books that I teach, so he knows what he's talking about.
But AmericanDeception.com was a site that she did with her son, and her son was helping her research, and AmericanDeception.com is where a lot of the source material used to be. Like the copy that we have of the Reese Committee hearings is Charlotte's copy. She went and found that copy and got it and circulated it. Her work, I remember when I first encountered her work, I didn't know what to make of it because it's just too overwhelming and out of left field. And I was familiar with Gatto's work, but not as much as I could. So Gatto's work bounced off me the first time. I saw Charlotte's work. I was like, there's something here, but I don't know what it is. I did some more learning, discovered like Tragedy and Hope and Anthony Sutton's work. Then I went back to those two books. I was like, oh, these people are all talking about the same thing. She's talking about the 1934 Carnegie Blue Book, which was the internationalist text inserted into America. So the globalists are like, here's how we're going to insert into American education and turn it into our compulsory schooling and reshape it in our image. And we'll remove the history where we're at war with Britain and that everything will be just hunky-dory. And they got their way and they did it. So Charlotte was, she was working in the Reagan administration back, I think in the 80s. And she came across some of this information. She was incredulous. And then she went and dug it up and she's like, oh my goodness, they are systematically changing the attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs of Americans to be more in line with communists and collectivists. The removal of individual rights. Basically, it's a way to erode any of America's power. What did America have? We had our ability to coin money and we had freedom of speech and we had all these things. Those separated us from the British Empire. So as they kind of cut those piers one by one, they can do a controlled demolition of the whole thing. And that's kind of where we're at in history right now. So we got front row seats. We're like that movie Grand Tour back in the day. It was time travelers from the future who would go to big events in the past and they would watch it. And it had like Jeff Daniels. It was an early 90s comedy. But there's something to having front seats on like the end of the world type situation. So I don't see it as a tragedy. I see it as a big opportunity, a good call to action for everybody to get on the field and start playing and stop being spectators. Because if these people think they can do this to our world without us seeing it and doing something about it, they're wrong. And we're in motion. So Charlotte, her work spans, decades and decades and decades. And that's her book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. It's a 700-page book. It's heavy duty. It's an academic quality. It uses real references and resources. It's not hyperbolized, right? But her other big contribution that very few people know about is when Charlotte's father passed away, he was in Skull and Bones. And Charlotte's grandfather used to work for Cecil Rhodes in South Africa. Oh. He was in mining. Okay. So Charlotte had conversations with her dad, but he wouldn't tell her anything. Well, between his death and her going through the attic, and then Skull and Bones sending, here's this year's, book for the members. She's like, I got this evidence and there's something here, but it's outside of her purview. She doesn't know. She's an expert on the educational part, and she knows there's something to this. She doesn't know what to do. So she calls up Anthony Sutton and says, Anthony, your books on the Bolshevik Revolution and Wall Street and all these sort of things lead me to believe you would be interested in this content. He's like, send it over. So he wrote a book called America's Secret Establishment: An Introduction to Skull and Bones. And in there was a report how the Order 322, how the Skull and Bones Secret Society controls education. And when you go through and compare what they're saying in their documents to what Charlotte had found from the Carnegie, like there's a comprehensive plan with multiple secret societies or working groups going toward this same thing.
All right, so you get the idea that if you're interested in retooling and reorienting your approach to education, then start with Richard's course right here, which is over at Autonomy University. There's an obstacle course. You finish that, and that will give you the options about whether you want to sign up for the course that Richard is teaching this year. As you guys know, I just taught this last season over there my philosophy course, which was a lot of fun. It's still available. It's always available. The link is in today's show description for the philosophy course over at Autonomy University. It's 12 lectures, about 30 to 35 hours worth of material going through the history of Western philosophy. If you're interested, head on over there and check that out. But yeah, I would say it's a great place to start for starting over your personal education if you're interested in doing it your own way. We have all the tools available to us nowadays we don't need the legacy education system anymore. So we might as well, do it the right way. And you can do all this stuff on your own, but it does help to have people who are really knowledgeable, to have professors. But you can have professors and people who are better than people at the state brainwashing education system. And it's a lot cheaper. I think this is the future of education. So let's get back to Pirates of the Caribbean. And we're at the, where are we at? The Curse, the Flying Dutchman.
Davy Jones.
What do you think of Pirates 3? I like all of these. Now we're getting to World's End, right?
Well, the end of the second one is where we meet the Calypso.
And Barbossa's back.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And she's like, would you do anything to bring back Jack Sparrow?
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have a resurrection.
Mm-hmm. Speak up.
Right?
Right, so Jack, we find out that he dove into the belly of the beast. So they had awakened the Kraken, and in order for Jack Sparrow to destroy the Kraken, or to save everybody, he had to dive into it, right? And presumably he destroyed it, but we don't know. We didn't see exactly what happened, except that, well, I mean, it does actually show up dead, but we don't know what happened to Jack. And Jack has ended up in the in-between, right? He's in this liminal space of the in-between of hell and our world in some sort of weird, I don't know what you call it, the Saccosphere. Yeah. Where's he at?
The upside down.
Yeah.
And it's funny that his torture is being alone with himself.
Yes,
all the different versions of himself and his psyche. That's his version of torment.
So it's almost like, well, throughout the story, they've been saying that, right? Remember at one point Elizabeth confronts him and says, "Are you just going to be selfish and take care of yourself, or do you care about other people?" Because remember at one point he's rowing away. He's going to get away and let them fight and die.
Yeah.
And then he feels bad because of what Elizabeth said, so he comes back, right? So Elizabeth's kind of his conscience. And because, at one point he's going to try to mac on her, and then she locks him to the ship.
Yeah.
Right. So she's his conscience, and he keeps turning more and more and more to the good. But then when he ends up in hell after this self-sacrificial event to to go into the belly of the beast, right? He gets down there and it's altars, like it's all the altars of himself. So he's tormented by being with himself on his own ship.
And even his like angel on his shoulder when he gets back are the versions of himself, right?
But it's like he has to overcome himself as the final villain for him to be resurrected as the good Captain Jack Sparrow.
And he gives up his eternal life as captain of the Flying Dutchman to save Will.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah, great point. Yeah. So basically, self-sacrifice was necessary, but the last self-sacrifice was himself, his own will, right? Because he was willing to dive into the Kraken to save everybody, right?
Well, she chained him to the thing, that's why.
Well, he didn't have to dive into it, the Kraken.
That's true.
So he's going into the belly of the beast. It's kind of like Jonah going into the beast, into the abyss, This is a descent tale, a catabasis, and then he goes into the underworld and he's stuck there, imprisoned with altars of himself. And then he has to eventually Calypso and everybody goes to save him, right? So they do a catabasis to resurrect and just to. What's the Jordan Peterson's always talking about? Saving your father. So Johnny Depp's kind of like the father figure that you have to save from the underworld. You've got to rescue your father.
Well, then she meets her father in the
because he is he's killed. He's headed to the underworld. Good point. Yeah.
And so that's another symbol of the East India Company killing the old way of doing things, the old government, the old heads of. What was he like a? Governor?
Who? Lord Cutler?
No, her dad. Elizabeth Swann.
Yeah, he's just the governor for the British Empire of Port Royal. But now they're...
So commerce is replacing the old way.
Yeah, so commerce and the corporation is replacing the old lines of bloodline and nobility. And that's why when Lord Beckett and Lord Cutler, when they show up in 3, they start killing all the pirates. It gets really dark. They even kill a kid pirate.
Well, the opening scene of Pirates of the Caribbean 3 is like they're hanging all of the pirates, including children. Right.
And that's because he says he's instituted martial law.
Yeah.
So martial law is instituted. There's a pirate purge. It's a total corporate police state. And then they have to go get help from the Chinese pirates. So they bring in the Chinese pirates, them nasty ass, stank ass baths.
It's all the pirates from around the world. There's like Indian pirates.
No, but they go to the
Singapore
pirates. But they go to the stank baths at the beginning.
Right.
Then they have the pirate conference.
Yes.
Right, which there's never been one in 100 years or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But by the way, the British East India Company, for those that don't know, that will be the model also for MI5 and MI6. Again, British intelligence comes out of the British East India Company. I mean, it goes back to Elizabeth, sure, but like privateering, and remember James Bond. James Bond is what? He's Commander
Navy.
Bond. He's a Navy guy. Ian Fleming, head of British intelligence, Black Ops, Navy commander, exactly. So,
maritime law.
Yeah. Do y'all know about Jordan Maxwell? When I do these impressions, people don't know who Jordan Maxwell is, right?
He's a classic.
He was he loved
you
to
get a birth certificate because you birthed a ship in the port, right? And a port is a portal.
So he would just get super creative with words and assign to them significances that don't exist. Like, what does he say? Jolly Roger, Jolly Rancher. I don't know if he says that, but
no, his stuff veers off when he talks about the sun being God.
The Son of God, Jesus, Son of God, SONSUN, like that level is stupid, right? But
yeah.
But he did always talk about martial law, marital law, and exactly what Jamie's talking about. But he also talked about the Jolly Roger of the pirates was chosen by Skull and Bones. Anyway, so the best Jordan Maxwell story is the pterodactyl, when he says he saw a pterodactyl. I was standing outside of my home on the porch in Los Angeles, and I swear to you, I saw a pterodactyl flying by the other day.
You did it.
But he didn't realize that you can buy, if you're a kid, instead of remote control planes, you can buy remote control pterodactyls. Yeah. So how's that for conspiracy theories?
He's a classic character.
Yeah. All right. Where are we at on this? Pirates 3? Does this prove Fat Earth? I'm surprised all the Fat Earth people didn't jump on this movie because
their map was flat.
If you remember, like when Fat Earth started popping off on YouTube like 7 or 8 years ago, they were going to movies where it proved the ice wall. Like they would show clips from Game of Thrones.
Well, that.
And then there was like clips from Monsters Inc. And then they would be. I'm surprised. How come nobody used Pirates 3? Because they sailed to the end of the earth, right?
Yeah, no, and they went through the ice
level. I know, they go to the ice level.
Yeah, like Mario.
The world's a video game, yeah. You go to the ice level, and then you go to the afterworld, the underworld, after you go through the ice level.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how they be thinking of it. Anyway, so we're at the land of the dead. We have a Calabasas. What else? Mini Jacks. Jack is sitting next to a goat, so I guess we're supposed to think this is satanic. This is at the realm of the dead. He's going mad, but they have to get the 9 collected together, and this is odd from an esoteric perspective. 9 has a connection to initiation in the occult, right? 9 and 11 both relate to that, and they have to collect the pieces of 9, of which there's only 8.
No.
Right.
There's 9 pieces of 8.
Okay. And that will unbind Calypso, right?
Yes.
So it's a magic ritual where all of the pirates have to come together in a pirate ecumenical council.
Right.
And then they let loose Calypso, right?
Yeah. But they have to say it in a way like a lover would say it. So, he was kind of sleepy that day. And he fell asleep.
I don't remember. What are you talking about?
So when they get the 9 pieces of 8 and they're about to let Calypso go, they say, Calypso, I release you from your human bonds, but they didn't say it right, and you have to say it like a lover because she was in love with Davy Jones. Interesting.
So if you would, by the way, support the show through Streamlabs. Super chats are right there. Y'all being stingy. Nobody likes this movie. I thought this was a lot of fun. Like, where's all the fun at? Well, you're learning about all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, in the fourth one, which we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on, 4 and 5, but on Stranger Tides, I didn't actually think these were that bad. I thought they were okay. This one is like a Grail quest. So, go ahead. Stupid lights always going out. Go ahead. Can you entertain them?
I don't remember anything about the fourth one.
Anyway, so we're going to stick to the first 3 for tonight's analysis. Do you want to take some super chats here? Yeah. You can do this one here from Marvin. Flav right there for $1.
Flab, how do you do? Have you seen recent releases like A Haunting in Venice, Expendables, Master Gardener, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3, Talk to Me, All Fun and Games, The Whale, or The Nun 2? We did see Haunting in Venice. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I did like Haunting in Venice. Spoiler alert. We actually, Jamie and I both called it ahead of time. We thought it would be, on the one hand, you would think it was a murder under the cloak of a seance and the occult, but then it turns out there's also an actual real ghost type of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly what we thought it would be. That is what it was.
I don't think I've seen any of those other ones. Talk to Me. Was that the hand?
Yes, we did watch Talk to Me. That was pretty gross. I don't want to recommend anybody watch that with nasty stuff in it.
Yeah, that was scary to watch that.
It just grossed me out. Sorry, it scared
you. And it's like, why do you keep doing this? It's so dumb, but people do it every day.
Do what?
Like Ouija boards and spells.
Trying to contact
the
contacting
spirits. The dead and getting in trouble.
And it's always somebody with a nasty house, too. Like we see it on them ghost videos.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody that's got a haunted house is also nasty. So maybe you just clean up your house and the ghosts will go away.
Clean your room.
Clean your room.
Hey Jay, thanks for your lectures on Daniel and Isaiah. Love the message of hope and all the denominations. The Orthodox reading of the Bible makes the most sense to me. Big thumbs up. That was from Marvin Falls.
Of all the denominations, Orthodoxy makes the most sense. Yeah, I agree with you, Marvin. Thank you so much.
Cedric, $5. One of my favorite movies when I was a kid. Love you both. Yeah, it's one of the best live action Disney's.
Cedric Oddbroken. Im Oddbroke.
Jack Sparrow. Can you do that one? Davy Jones?
Not right now.
Why not?
We didn't get enough super chats. If we got more super chats, I would try
face?
I would try to do it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Right here.
Dr. Chillin, 959. Hey, big homie. Thanks for all your work. Just wanted to ask, if the triune God is one mind, how could Jesus talk with the Father? Also, if there's one divine will, why would Jesus say your will, not mine? Again, thanks for your work, big dog. Heart.
Because Jesus has two natures. So he has a human mind and a divine mind. He has a human will and a divine will. So in the triad, there's one will that exists in the mode of three persons that have that will. But in the incarnation, it's not just the divine person. There's also a human will, human body, fully human nature, human mind. So Jesus, as we say in the Second Ecumenical Council, has a fully rational mind or soul. So when he's incarnate, because he's fully man, when he's praying, he submits his human will to the divine will that he shares with the Father. So the prayer is not just the redemption and deification of the human nature that he assumed, it's also an example for us.
Okay. Yo.
No.
No. That's it.
No. He has two.
Oh.
Dr. Chillin, $10.
Hey, big dog. Thanks for all your work. Just wanted to ask, if the triune God is one mind, how do you have conversations with Jesus and the Father? Also, if one will, why does Jesus say your will and not mine? Again.
So you asked that question twice. Sorry about that. If you want your money back, just message me and I'll give you your $10 back.
Yo, $10 and no message.
Yo ho, $10 for me. Thank you for that. Yo. I want to remind you guys too that we have the best sponsor when it comes to supplements. If you head on over to chalk.com, chalk.com is available for all of my listeners and followers at a great discount, an amazing discount on the best adaptogens that you can get. Head on over there for the male vitality stack that you see right here. That is the Chalk male stack. You get daily, you get the Tonkat Elite, which boosts testosterone. You get the ashwagandha. It's not $133. If you use the promo code J50, that's JAY50, you get 50% off of that. For ladies, if you're interested, you can get the Irish Moss, the Shilajit, ashwagandha, all of which are great for balancing out your hormones, for mental focus and clarity, especially the Shilajit. Jamie loves those. She uses them quite often. As well as tons of other products like minerals for our mineral deficient diets. You can make up for that with chalk minerals. There's also just the Tonkat Elite itself that you can get. Again, you can read the papers that go into how it boosts testosterone over at Chalk. All of those are highly rated, highest standards when it comes to purity over there. And if you want to go ahead and set up recurring subscriptions, as you said, here's the research. You can go read the research right there at the website. Use the promo code J53LIFE, that's J53LIFE, to set up recurring subscriptions. And then you don't have to put that information in every week or every month. You can just get it coming on the regular. And I assure you that as a regular Chalk user, you're going to want Chalk on the regular. So thank you so much to Chalk.com. Also want to remind you guys, too, that you can go to the website and get all of Jamie's books, which cover film symbolism, esoterica, philosophy, occult, mind control in Hollywood, as well as my books like the Red Book, 660 pages on geopolitics.